I'm Corbett Wall, USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending June the 8th, where we had yearling feeder cattle selling mostly steady with instances as much as $2 higher, and most of those happening in sale barns where they had a load just what everybody was wanting, not so much in the direct trade. But you know, if the cattle were right there, they might give that for them to get them. Calves very uneven, continuing that way and have been for the last week or so. This week more so with ranges on statewide trends from $5 lower all the way up to $5 higher. And the $5 lower was definitely in the drier portions of the southeast, which is really starting to hurt for some rain, especially in places like Missouri and Arkansas, northern Arkansas, that run a lot of cattle. Missouri, this week's receipts, feeder cattle receipts, were 91% larger than the same week a year ago. In Arkansas, they were 140% larger than a year ago on feeder cattle numbers. West Plains, Missouri, which is Ozarks Regional Stockyard in extreme south central Missouri. They sell a lot of cattle there and a lot of Missouri and Arkansas cattle. In the last 3 weeks, in that sale alone, they've sold 16,300 head of feeder cattle compared to around 4,500 for the same 3 weeks a year ago. And that gives you an idea how dry it is in that area. That's a heavily concentrated cow-calf area. The land in that area not suitable for farming. They do run a lot of cattle in that area, and they rely on this time of year to really stock those pastures heavy and be able to cut hay too. And it's been so dry in that area that they're not even able to support the cows that they have, let alone cut the hay that they know they're going to need to get them through the other parts of the year. So selling a lot of cattle out of that area. You know, receipts were a lot heavier this week than they were last week, partly due to the dry that's bringing those cattle out of the woodwork progressively faster, and partly because of last Monday was Memorial Day and a lot of those sale barns were shut down. And some of the higher markets we saw, especially on the yearling cattle, was because those markets were just now seeing last week's market advance because they didn't have enough cattle to test or didn't have a sale last week. But you know, the yearling market is good, very impressive. Been gaining, you know, maybe $1 or $2 here and there every week so far, but it's not crazy. And a lot of people thought that it would be. We still have not gotten back up to the record levels that we reached in late February this year. And so you don't normally expect late February yearling feeder cattle to be higher than going into the summer months. But you know, on the 24th of February, it broke the all-time record on the CME feeder cattle index of 157.44, and the latest we have now is like 155.14. So I expect it will probably hit that, especially when we start to see some bigger runs in the northern plains, Nebraska and Iowa, northern Missouri. When northern Kansas gets back to selling cattle again after their harvest break, we expect that we'll have enough of those higher cattle to push that index higher. But like this week in Ogallala, Nebraska, they had over 400 head of top quality steers weighed from 7 to 800 pounds. They averaged 762 at 162.54. So, and they were about the only major sale in the Nebraska area up there that had a sale this week. But we'll start to see some specials come along here, especially when we get closer to July, and depending on how dry it gets, because the southern corn belt is getting very dry too. Guys that didn't put their corn in real early, and pretty much all the beans in the southern half of the corn belt look pretty pitiful. Some of that early corn that the guys took a chance and put in did develop a root system and has got down to some moisture and has got a good stand on it. It looks pretty good, but and we realize it's still early, but you know, we've been running a month and a half ahead all year long, and in the southern part of the corn belt it feels like late July, and it shouldn't. But it's still early, still got a good chance to see some rains, but if they don't get some rains pretty fast in that southern corn belt, we're not going to see near the crop that they've already predicted, and not going to see the price come down on feed and your soybeans and things like that. But northern parts of the corn belt and areas have seen a lot of rain, maybe too much rain, but moisture conditions are a lot better in the upper part of the corn belt. This week's fat cattle market found $1 to $1.50 higher in prices, from $122 to $123.50, almost entirely because the board was so much higher on Thursday. And nobody can really tell you why it gained that much ground. Probably the same unknown reasons that the board's been struggling ever since that bullish on feed report, but hard to figure that out. But a lot of the analysts are saying that we've got some heavy market ready supplies for the next month or 6 weeks. Going to have bigger show lists, a lot of cattle to get through. You talk to guys out in the feedlots, and a lot of them don't agree with that. They're thinking, well, that was back when cattle were really high in the dead of winter, and we didn't participate. And we don't have a lot of cattle, going to be coming right now from that feeder cattle buy then. But I guess we'll see, and they probably know a lot more about it than we give them credit for. But this week's regional weighted averages: in the north central states, an 8 to 900 pound steer cost you $152.50 compared to $151.41 last week and $123.38 a year ago. Down in the south central states, 7 to 800 pound steer cost you $153.91 compared to $153.63 last week and $124.79 a year ago. And down in the southeast, a 5 to 600 pound steer was $162.71 compared to $167.53 last week and $125.97 a year ago. That wraps up your market summary for this week. Check out our website at marketnews.usda.gov for more market information. From the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.